welcome. My name is Penelope Chatterton. Welcome to Awaken the Dream. My friends, I have Pastor Jackie Trought back with me this week, and I had so much fun talking with her on the last program that I'm just not letting her off the hook for anything. We are going to Florida, which is where she ended up from Jamaica, and if you missed that first show, it'll be running all month, so please catch it. Welcome back.
Thank you.
All right. Maybe we can summarize just quickly. You had an aha moment around the religious experience that you had, which was a gift for you to sort of say, this is not for me, there must be something else. You got more in touch with your God energy, and you definitely wanted to seek out the meaning of your life and what God was. And that was on our first program, but I had to get you off Jamaica. So you got a scholarship. You never paid a dime to go to college. Now, that's pretty unique.
It didn't start out with a scholarship. It started out with an invitation to accept to go to the college. And then I would have to provide all the finances to go. I did not have those kinds of resources, and then they began to internally the school began to look for finances for me. So it started out with just getting through the first semester, and I realized that all I had to do was get A's.
I bet that was easy for you.
You know, when you know that that's what you need to do, you do it.
You do it.
I didn't think there was a problem with doing it. Well, just hypothetically speaking, if I didn't do it, I was not going to have an education, a college education. So let's do it.
So you behaved yourself in college? You weren't a heavy dater.
I tell you what, it was a transition for me, and I did not understand the culture. There were shocks to the culture.
I'll bet.
Yes, that just made me more of a critic than a participant.
Okay.
And I think that probably saved me.
And maybe your studies look good to you because you could withdraw into the work you had to do?
I think also that I felt because I had come from another country and this was the superpower of the world, that I probably had to be more than I was in order to achieve. Because I felt like Jamaica is called a developing country, so therefore we probably don't have all the skills, all the knowledge, all the what it takes to compete or be a part of this culture. So that also sent me into studying.
Yeah. Well, the course is hard?
No.
No. The basics to begin with?
No.
Specialized?
No. No.
Art and music?
In fact, at one point, I think after the first semester they told you how many courses to take. So I ended up, I think, with 14 or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
It was just a little bit about 12. But by the third semester, I was into 23 credits. Because I thought, I can do this.
Okay, I want to get out of here.
No, it wasn't about getting out of here. It was about doing so much. There was calculus and algebra and linear algebra, and I wanted to do all of that. I want to get geometry. I wanted to do all of that. So in my sophomore year, I was piling it on.
Wow, and you handled it.
Yes, it was natural, I think.
Okay.
I don't know.
I think you are ambitious.
No, it had to be done.
That sounds ambitious to me.
Penelope,
be patient with me.
No, that's not it. I think there was something intriguing about actually doing this, actually probing it, getting into it, seeing it, touching it, getting all of that right. To me, that
sounds exciting, though. Like a very different chapter. So if I'm going to do it,
there you go.
That is fabulous.
Yes.
Fabulous. So good for you. How many years did you take?
I stopped the last year. My father got ill, and he had a stroke. So I stayed out of school to take care of him. But other than that, I did 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think I stayed out a semester to take care of him.
All right. So you went home, came back.
Yeah,
did your mom come with you?
My mother had lived in America before.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So you finished this chapter and you dug through the studies. Now, where did you pick up from there?
At that point, I got married to a wonderful man.
Did you meet him in school?
No, I met him in Jamaica. We kind of tiptoed around together all.
If the truth were known.
If the truth were known. We kind of tiptoed around Canada, New York, New Hampshire, Vermont. We kind of tiptoed around together all the time.
Was it love at first sight?
No, I think my husband offered me, or what I think I saw was a vision. He encapsulated a vision that made me envious. Or
you wanted it?
No, I wanted to be a part of it.
A part of it, that's what I mean.
He had it wasn't just enthusiasm. He could foresee something and create it and build it. He could visualize something, and he could take nothing and he could make something out of it. He had vision.
And creativity.
And creativity. And I kind of just jumped on board and like, oh, you got another dream. Okay, let me build it for you.
Wow. What a team.
Yes.
So it's been a great team.
It's been a wonderful team. Yes.
Oh, that's grand.
And hence the church.
And hence the church. Now,
Yes.
you said he was a minister.
He was a minister in Jamaica.
Okay.
And so it became natural for me to, for him, when he wanted to build a church in Florida or to start a church from scratch, because we've always done that.
Yeah.
So we started the church, registered it with the government, created our own audience, that kind of thing, rented our own facility, all that, registered as a non-profit corporation, filed our own state and legal affairs. And so I did all those paperwork because I wanted to see the dream materialize.
So you started in Florida, though, as a team with a church.
He had churches in Jamaica.
Okay.
So when we got to Florida, it was kind of a natural thing to start a church as well. Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yes.
And how long were you there, involved?
We were in Florida for approximately 8 years.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's a good run.
Yes. We had the church for approximately 3 of those 8 years, because the first, when I was in school, we were attending another church, which was really fun. And I think it gave us more of an idea of what the American system or what the American culture would gravitate to.
I gotcha. Yes. And did you come to the Cape right from there?
Yes, we left Florida and we came to Cape Cod.
Why Cape Cod?
Why? It was a pit stop for Canada.
I never thought of the Cape that way.
Yes, my husband had family in Canada, so he would go there, and there were churches that he was involved with there. In fact, there was a church he had started there way back before my time. So he would always go to visit family, but I call Canada the icebox. So it was kind of a pit stop, like, can we please not go to the icebox? Could we stop off somewhere closer that you could visit the icebox a lot more easier than Florida?
And did you know anyone on the Cape?
We had friends here through ministry.
Okay, yeah. So you stopped off. You were up to something, weren't you?
Now, after we got here to Cape Cod, that was another. It wasn't so much of a culture shock, but it was a culture adjustment as well. I think when you've crossed state lines, you begin to understand that there are differences.
There are.
Differences of how people think, how they understand, and even spiritual differences as well. And there is definitely a spiritual difference on Cape Cod. As a result of that, we had to deal with, how do I say this? We had to understand and penetrate the cultural difference in order to stay alive.
Okay, there's an assignment.
And I when I say alive, I'm really choosing my words carefully, because in this culture, in the Cape Cod culture, if you're not inbred, or if
a wash ashore, or whatever they call it.
They call it that. Or
I'm not either.
You're not resourcefully intact. That means if you don't have the bottom line. Or
you're an outsider.
Yes. Or if you don't have the right social ethics or culture or understanding, you probably will die. And when I say die, I don't mean a physical death. I mean you just feel that this is not the place for you.
It could be very lonely.
More than lonely.
Yeah.
More than lonely. You tend to want to leave.
Yeah. Well, the word came out. You spit it out. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But you hung in?
One of the things that I think Jamaica did for me was taught me not to quit. I noticed that when we got here, people were being celebrated for finishing high school. You never celebrated at high school in Jamaica because that's an expectation.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're never, oh, we're going to graduate because you finished high school. Oh, that's so wonderful. No, you're expected to finish high school. It's a given.
Yeah.
And if you don't finish, you're going to have to give a whole lot of people an explanation. In fact, a lot of people will not allow you to not finish.
Wow,
because
I like
you're
that.
not going to be roaming around the streets as a little kid. You know, there are lots of adults that would be responsible for your life. Why aren't you in school?
Yeah.
Or the teacher would come or send someone home, not a note.
No, she
Send
comes.
someone home,
Wow.
or perhaps come to the house and say, Tommy was not in school today. What's going on? So we're heavily invested in commitment.
That's beautiful.
Whatever you're committed to, you're expected to
Yeah.
finish.
Our friends need to hear this on this program. This is wonderful. This is what we need to do.
Yes.
We need to take care of each
Commitment.
other. Yes.
And commitment to each other as well.
Yeah.
And in a good sense, not
Yeah.
in a negative sense.
Yeah.
And so when we got to Cape Cod, it was more of getting to, and I won't say acclimated to what was here, but it was more keeping that spirit alive, keeping God alive.
Yeah.
And the more we did that, the more we found out that we had to climb to other levels spiritually in order to do that. Or again, I say you would die.
Yeah.
And I don't mean physical death, but so in order to do that, here came blood, the currency of the spirit world.
Tell us about the book, which I am so thrilled that you gave me a copy.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think probably one of the most significant things that happened to me was developing cancer. And being able to combat that.
Yeah.
And I am a firm believer in natural healing.
Yeah.
I think all things should be natural, should remain natural, and I think we should be creative around what is natural. So when the doctor called and says, we're looking at surgery, I turned to my husband. He was in the car. I was on the phone. I said, never. And but I knew that it was not just going to be a mindset where I say, no, I'm not doing that because I don't believe in that. It wasn't that. It would be that I would have to find the answer.
Yeah. As to why?
Well, not just to why. If life, Penelope, was only lived here in the earth, if all that life was all that we see, then we would not need to be committed to anything. We would not have to have restraints. We would not have to be disciplined. We would not have to care for each other because it would end. And when it ended, you had nothing else to look forward to. It's almost like a pair of old shoes, and when it's done, it's worn out, it's done, you dump it, you get another one, and perhaps if you go to the dump, you'll probably see it there still. It's done, it stays.
Is that the explanation you gave your husband? If so, he might have stopped the car.
But life is greater than what we can see with our physical eyes.
I totally agree.
Taste,
feel, hear.
Yes. If the senses are all that we have to depend on, we're going to fail. If I can see it, if I can taste it, if I can touch it, if I can smell it, if I can handle it, and it all makes sense, and that's all I have to live for, then I will die. And not just physically, but spiritually. And because we knew that there was more to life than just the physical, then we had to tap into the spiritual to make this all be a reality. I would remember sitting down at night and writing and just communing with the Lord and asking why and the questions of why. And I remember once the Lord said, instead of asking me why don't you ask me how? And so I began to change my questions from why to how.
Okay.
And the first thing that I had to do was I had to let go of bitterness that had begun to creep into my soul.
Okay.
I call it impurity.
Okay.
And in the book I talk about impurities.
Okay.
When you've introduced, let's say for example, you're mixing lemonade.
Okay.
The lemonade is your concoction for lemonade is going to be sugar, lime, and water.
Okay.
If you take a bottle of scotch
Ooh.
and you pour it into that lemonade, the scotch in itself is not an impurity, but pour it into the lemonade, it becomes distasteful.
Okay.
So it becomes an impurity. It was not designed for it. It was not meant for it. It does not enhance the flavor, and it's not palatable.
Yeah.
And I think that there are a lot of things that we've put into our lives that are not palatable. They're okay.
Yeah.
We can tolerate them, we can live with them, but sometimes they become the edge, the razor, the spike, the spoke, the impurity that begins to eat at our souls.
Yeah. Okay.
And sometimes we do this, most of the times, probably all of the times, we do this either for gratification, or we do it for survival, or we do it because we want to fit in. There are lots of reasons that the intellect spin or concoct in order to allow.
Are you talking to addictions that people can?
It could be
anything
for whatever reason you want to include something in your life. Like I'm saying, the scotch may not be an addiction, or let's use something. Let's use mud for example.
That's a lot easier. No mud in the lemonade.
No mud in the lemonade. Number one, you probably would not want to drink it unless you just want to understand what mud tastes like.
Right.
Okay.
The word foreign to the body.
Let's use something else. Flour. We understand that.
You're getting better here.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's say we put flour in the lemonade. It just doesn't make practical sense.
Yeah.
So there are things that we add to our lives or creep into our souls that eventually causes impurities and causes us to begin to reshape or reevaluate how we deal with our environment. And I think most of it, the bottom line, I believe, is because we want to live.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
We want life. We want the greatness, the beauty, the glory of life.
Yeah.
And so we either become self-protective or we begin to do these things in order to guard our hearts against the world and the offerings. And sometimes we're pushed aside. Sometimes we're not loved. Sometimes, and we use different methods of guarding ourselves.
Yeah.
Or sometimes because we want to fit so much, we walk into a different clique or we walk on a path.
We wear a mask. That's not us.
Yes. And those things sometimes eat at the soul.
They can make you sick.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the first thing I had to do was I had to let my grievances go. I called myself, I look back at the last 3 years of my life and I call it a living, breathing computer of notes and details of sadness and woes. And I was a stockbroker of the sadness and the things that I had experienced.
Yeah.
I had the
You felt it was all in your memory? And
I had memorized them. I had ticker taped them. I knew them all.
I gotcha.
I could recite them. I felt the impressions of them. I knew what they were. I knew who they were. I knew the times. I was a ticker tape of sadness.
Okay. Okay.
And the first thing that I had to do was to go back to the Lord and say, I had to let that go.
Yeah.
And letting that go was not, I'm not just talking about getting up one day and saying I'm going to let it go. Because we're humans and because we think and because we're intellectual, we have to begin to understand a reasoning behind why and how.
Yeah.
And the reasoning took me to blood, the currency of the spirit world. The reasoning actually that Jesus Christ, who is my Lord, who went to Calvary a long time ago, and he suffered the worst cruelty that humankind could ever bear. But the reason he did that was so that whenever I came up against cruelty or whenever I came up against things that I could not bear, I could go to him and I could say, Father, will you help me carry this load?
Yeah.
Will you help me understand this?
Yeah.
Can I leave this burden on you?
Yeah.
So that I can take your purity, or I can take the freedom that you died to give me.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like...
Beautifully said.
Thank you. It's kind of like a soldier going to war, and he goes off into war in another country, and he leaves behind a family, and that family knows freedom, but they don't know the price of war.
Yeah.
They don't know what it cost for him to walk into that battle zone and to risk his life and to do everything that he's done and to come back home. And sometimes the expectation that they put on that soldier to come back alive is sometimes unreal.
Yeah. Yeah.
That soldier comes back alive and he doesn't bring anything in his hand except that I know that I am free because he fought the battle somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's what
that's a good analogy.
That's what Christ did for us.
Yeah.
So to accept that he did it for us, it's not something that I'm going to say, oh yeah, I saw Christ on the cross and I know what he did, so bless God, my soul is free. Should I do that on your show?
Well, of course. But did you find your healing came in waves? I mean, because of all of the stuff.
I found that it came with spiritual insight.
I mean, I don't know. I have noticed there seems to be a rhythm to, you know, you can handle so much purging of your pain and what you have to look at, and then you get a little plateau for a minute to breathe and
to digest that.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
Digest it, yes.
To make that permanent growth is a little slow.
Yes, to take that step into that area that you've now learned.
And then when you're ready for the next one, you're just ready.
Yes, I think so. And I think sometimes it takes a moment to digest it first before you're ready to move on to something else.
I think so.
And sometimes I think you get a dose. Sometimes an overdose, perhaps.
Yes.
And sometimes you can handle that overdose because you're in the right place for it.
Yeah. 5 minutes, but 5 minutes is a long time. So tell us. So that is a beautiful story. So you got healthy gradually?
I did. I lost all cells, all lumps.
Anything that was holding anything that was negative.
The first thing that had to go was that ticker tape of sadness.
Yeah. Okay.
That was the first thing that had to go, and then after that, the answers came, like you say. The answers came after. The other thing that I had learned about that was that what Christ did on the cross for us was not just symbolic. It was there were lessons to be learned, and so we don't have time to go into the story, but I began to write on what he did because he offered blood.
Yeah.
And what I found out, that blood was something that was used in the spiritual world, because we're not all physical. So it was something that was used in the spiritual world, kind of like how we use money here to get things done.
Yeah,
so if
the currency.
Right. So if you wanted to get something done spiritually, like if you wanted to be healed, you probably should have enough blood to get your healing.
Gotcha. I hear you.
But where do you get it from?
That's right.
And who do you get it from?
Yeah.
And how do you access that blood?
Yeah. I'm hearing a lot about surrender here.
Amen.
A lot about guidance and
spiritual insight.
Yeah.
Wisdom.
You're not alone.
Knowledge. And it comes from the Spirit.
Yeah.
And Penelope, in this book, I talk about dabbling. Places that we can go to find our answers. You can do hexes, you can do spells, you can do chants. And I believe they will answer your quest.
Where can our friends find this book?
This book is also at Barnes & Noble's.
We all know that.
Yes, we know Barnes & Noble's. We also have a website, and on the website you can go there.
You could order it there.
List. There's Amazon.com, there's BarnesandNoble.com.
Okay.
There are different places that you can. But wherever you go, if you're listening to this in Timbuktu, because the other day I looked on Google, and it's even carried in the UK.
Oh.
Yes, it's carried in England, it's carried in the UK, it's carried in Australia. I was like, whoa!
You see? It's just those doors?
Yes.
Now, are you writing more? Or are you still breathing from this one?
You know what? I'm living this.
Are you reading this one?
Yes.
I was teasing you before because it came through you.
It's got dog ears already.
I know.
It's got dog
Looks
ears
like
from my reading it.
My worst recipe book.
Yes.
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 Cookbook.
It's my recipe.
It's your
for
cookbook.
Life. Yes. It's my recipe for life.
Yeah.
And so often I go back and I look at it and I find answers.
Yeah. Isn't that an interesting process, though, that when you've written something, but you go back and it's like
brand new.
Brand new.
Brand new.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yes.
And I think we're brand new every minute and every day.
If we allow.
If we take responsibility for allowing
Yes.
that and realizing, it's the word I use, realizing
Yes.
who we are and the grace that is always present.
I like that.
I do too.
There is a grace that is present for us.
24/7, and that's an earth time, but I'm sure there's got to be another expression.
There is a spiritual, and even when we're asleep, Penelope, even when we're asleep, we have that grace to wash over us. There's some precious things that have been given to us in this life, and shame on us if we walk away and be dead wrong.
Yes, thank you. I have to check out, which makes me sad because I could sit with you for a long time. You're wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you, my friends, for joining us on Awaken the Dream. I will talk to you again soon.